So thank you to everybody that has joined us today. This is going to be an amazing, amazing expert business panel, which is only made possible by our amazing community members, these experts in their positions and in the community, just leading with contributions. So I am very, very fortunate to be connected to most of you on this call, and those that are not, I'd love to connect with you. So definitely reach out. Let's create a conversation and some camaraderie. I'm excited today because we're talking about making business count and making business happen. And the story is really around leading from the voices of data and creating an audience, driving a story that's meant for yourself and that audience and it's full alignment. And then, of course, making business happen, right? We got to pay bills and we want to be paid for something we're passionate about. So the message today really is about making it count. And I am very, very, very excited to announce our panelist. We have Amy with LB Digital. She is involved in data and excellence, right? She works with the Interactive Advertising Bureau, which means everything that is coming down the pike is meant for you with verified excellent data in the moments that matter, right? And that's very important. So we know who we're talking to in the right time. And then we've got Lindsay with Storyhouse 15. Lindsay is all about creating brand strategy and stories. And it's not as easy as putting things through a template, right? You were posting on that earlier, Lindsay, and I'm excited to share your voice today as we kind of go through some of these questions and discussion. And then, of course, we've got Patty with Marketing, Media, and Money. Patty is an amazing coach and really helps create this strategy, this blueprint that helps you get through the process and making business happen. And I'm just so privileged to be able to lead these conversations. And we do these as part of the community. GoDaddy's got a beautiful community on LinkedIn. So if you haven't joined it yet, definitely join it. And there's Jonathan. We absolutely love having conversations. So again, this is a panel event. We're going to be talking about some very particular questions, and we're going to lead with the voices of our experts here today. But remember, this is a conversation. So if you have thoughts, questions, anything you'd like to touch on, drop it in the chat. We will, at the very end, open this up for comments, questions, kudos, all of the above, because you're part of the community too. So thank you for being here. And I'm going to go ahead and just kind of kick this thing off. One of the things we always do is we like to have people that are on introduce themselves. I know we've got a little bit of time and a big crowd today, so I'd love it if you just kind of introduce yourself and name your business and where you're calling in from. So I will start. My name is Adam Griggs. We put it in the chat. I'm calling in from Sunbury, Ohio. It is stormy outside, but it is beautiful inside. And I'm so happy to be with you guys today moderating. My company is called CLARAfi, and I really appreciate this opportunity. I'm going to turn it over to Amy with LB Digital for her introduction.
Hey there, my name is Amy Benicewicz. I'm with LB Digital, and my company provides the most accurate and the most on-target data for clients so they can do really great with their marketing campaigns and support in any way we can. So I am going to turn it over to Lindsay in Indiana.
So yeah, I'm Lindsay Hotmire from Indiana. I'm the founder and chief story maker at Storyhouse 15. It's a story studio for small business owners who I say have outgrown their stories, and they know that they need new stories in order for them to grow and scale or really reinvent themselves. And so that's what we do from a really foundational identity level. And I think that's it. I'm going to turn it over to Patty Farmer from Texas.
Thank you. So I'm the founder of Marketing, Media, Money and pattyfarmer.com. And I am a marketing and media boutique agency, and I love working with entrepreneurs. And if I was going to sum it up in a sentence, since I'm on the panel, I would say that what we do is we help you to make your marketing profitable, not painful.
Just so everybody's aware, I know we're recording this, and the community members that are going to listen to this later can see that some of us are on screen, some of us are off, some of us are at home, some of us are in the office, some of us are in NOLA enjoying beignets, right? But this is what it means to be a community. It means to come together and really enjoy a conversation that can have some context for everyone. Yes, multiple beignets, Jonathan. Can't only have one. But I got to appreciate everybody that's showing up and being here in real time, because this is a conversation and we're committed to you as much as you're committed to us. So thank you for being here today. And I know that took a little bit of time, but we want to make sure that everybody feels supported and impacted here. And really, this is meaningful for you guys to be here and support the panelists as well. So without further ado, let's get this conversation started. I'm going to start throwing out some questions to our panelists, and we're going to get some great perspective and context from the beginning to the end, right? Everything in between in business, from data to creating the story and monetizing that along the way and creating that blueprint. So our first question that we have for the panelists is, how do you define a target market? I mean, really, we get into business. How do you start and define a target market? And I'm going to throw this to Amy first, since she's in data.
Yeah, great call, Adam. Yeah, thanks. That's a good question. And so it's a little more complex than it at first seems. So when you look at a target market, usually when you're creating a specific product or service, you're thinking of, well, who is this for? You kind of think of like, what's the problem? Who has a problem that I can help solve? So you're kind of creating the product or service with the target market in mind. So for instance, I'm just going to use a brand we all know, just as an example. So AARP, for instance, American Association of Retired Persons, and they were started, as you can guess, thinking of, mature audience that are retired or approaching retirement, and thinking of what value can we give these people at that time in their life that they don't really have anywhere. What do these people need? What's unique about them? So a lot of the focus was on, maybe age 55 plus. I don't know if it was older years ago, but, people used to retire at a certain age. They used to retire like, you're a senior, you're 55, you're going to retire pretty soon, or you're retired and you're looking for, discounts, you're on a fixed income. You may need insurance because you don't have insurance through your company anymore. And these are all kind of things like travel, because you may need discount travel, but you also may want to take tours because you don't feel comfortable going on your own, but now you have time to travel because you're retired, etc. So those were some of their key products, and their key audience was kind of obvious, I guess you could say. But now you think as time goes on, things are kind of changing, right? People are working many, many years into the future of what we used to once think when people had pensions and that sort of thing. So people are still, alive and kicking at age 70, and even at 80, they're starting their own companies, they're doing their own things, much more healthy, much more active, because how the health community has expanded and made new discoveries, so better medical care. So they're now going after, you'd think they'd go after an older audience, like, oh, let's get those retired people, they're now 80. But no, they kind of did something different. And what I see them doing now, just from their advertisements, is they're kind of going after a younger audience and saying, well, these people can benefit from our auto insurance offers that we do, and from our travel offers that we do. It's just people that kind of want to be a group, part of a group, and get certain benefits and discounts for their life, as well as talking about like retirement financing and that sort of thing that, more mature audience would want. So instead of going older, they kind of went younger. So now you say, who is AARP's target audience? Well, there's still American Association of Retired Persons, but there's, in public ads on, TV, we want the younger people. It's not too soon to start to plan, and all that. So they're actually targeting people as young as 40 or even younger, with all these same offers. And I guess the thought process is to then, once they join, they'll like it, and they'll still have them when they're older, and they'll still have those benefits. So I think it's really interesting how target audiences can be one thing at a certain time, but also can change. We're seeing a lot of differences also with digital transformation, where hotels, their target audience used to be travelers who, went to places away from their home and wanted to stay in a hotel. But you think of what hotels used to have competition of other hotels. They were all like property owning companies that had a place that you can stay when you're away from home. But now there's Airbnb, right? This is a place that doesn't own one property and is merely a platform, but now that's competing with hotels. Now, who stays at Airbnb are younger people who are more comfortable with the platforms, staying at Airbnb. So now those are the people that hotels are competing with. So it's really like a moving target, and it's really interesting to try to keep an open mind when you're looking for who is your target audience, and who really competes with your product is what you need to look for.
And I think there's a lot of value in what you just talked about, because you've hit on targeting the need and timing that need, right? And that really does matter when you're collecting data and creating this this niche approach, right? If you're trying to define what your market really is, but the world shifts constantly, and regathering and revalidating and re-understanding what your target is necessary, because there will continue to be people coming in and competing against you. There will continue to be innovation and technologies. And we're going to talk more about that later in this call. But all of these things are designed to create a level of familiarity with your brand, so that when the timing is right, you can strike and you can make business happen. And that's why it's important to have data and excellence, right? Understanding when and where your targets exist and how to make those moments matter. And I love that that's what you do, Amy. So thank you for defining the target audience and giving us a really easy to understand and palatable example. I'm going to throw this over to Lindsay. Lindsay, you're all about creating the story, right? So how do you define a target market aligned with your perspective in telling that story?
I say all my best stuff when I'm muted.
Isn't it first of all, I'll never learn it. I will never absorb that information in my brain to check mute. I'll never do it.
I was saying, I really like what Amy said as far as it being a moving target, because for me, when I feel like the word target audience is so marketified, right? We've turned it into something that is a thing. And as a result, it's almost like we've separated it from the humanity of what it really is. And so when we realize that these are really humans that we're dealing with, we understand that it is a moving target, because humans are constantly changing. We are constantly growing, constantly moving. Needs are constantly maturing and adjusting. And so when we have to acknowledge that who our target audience is when we first get into business is likely going to evolve as the longer we are in business. And that, number one, that's okay. That's kind of how it should be. It doesn't signal a failure. It signals evolution and growth in our own business. And so I like to think of target audience as a community. And so when we think about that as a new business or an evolving business, and ask ourselves that question of who and what is that community that I want to create, and what does that really mean? It allows us to not just put this hyper focus on the audience and us trying to manipulate or almost engineer the people that we're going to serve, but it allows us to step in with a full understanding of even who we are. I think I think that that's a huge piece, is we've got to understand, who am I? And am I even going to fit into this community that I'm trying to fit into? I see that as a big mistake that we often make as business owners. We go after the community that we think is going to make the most sense, be most attracted to our product, make us the most revenue. And we chase that and wind up getting burnt out and exhausted, because holy smokes, halfway down the way, we realize, I don't really fit in with these people. Like, they don't align with who I am. And so it requires the balance of those two. And so I'll stop there with that and let somebody else add in.
No, and I appreciate you for your perspective on that, because I think there's a couple of things you touched on there. This personal identity we all have is so filled with greatness, and so filled with expectations for ourselves, that we want to serve the masses. We want to create this environment where we're accepted by everybody. And in a business, that's dangerous, and we'll talk more about that. But the ability to create discovery moments for people as they go through their own lives, I mean, that's really the shift in telling the story of what you actually have to offer, because then people that have shifted into your line of sight can discover what they never knew, which is the possibility of doing business with you, or finding more for themselves, or creating a better lifestyle for their business. And I love that that's kind of what you help create, Lindsay, in really defining that story and that development. And then taking that and moving it towards monetization, right? I mean, Patty, this is where we all want to end up, right? Taking the blueprint down to the end of the road here, and finding not just a balance in acquiring customers, but developing loyalty in customers. So target market, how do you define it?
Well, I think that I love really what Amy said right there, and Lindsay too. But with Amy first, I really loved how she kind of explained it. And I loved the example of AARP, because really at the end of the day, it really is about community. It's about building relationships, and we know that. So if you think about the AARP and them starting early, well, that's kind of great, because now they have a longer time to build relationships and be able to nurture them, so that by the time they actually do need their services, they've already built this, relationship. So I think that is really a good thing. And I think that a lot of the times people like to say, oh, you know, it's demographics and psychographics and all that stuff, but it's so much more. I like to say with my clients, what I want to help them with is target market. That's like literally so 101 in the beginning, right? You know, it's just kind of like trying to get there. I really work with my clients on what is their target buyer and not really their target market. And the difference between your target market in a sentence is that while your target market may be somebody who has a problem that you have a solution to, a target buyer is somebody who has a problem that you have the solution to, and they're actively looking for that solution, which actually kind of changes everything. And so from a monetization point of view, it really is all about the relationships that we build, right? Relationships are the currency in today's business environment. So I like to say, as a tip, that one of the best ways that I know how to generate new business is to tap into your target market, target buyers, and your community through other businesses that cater to it by building relationships. So it's not just yours. Who are the people who cater to those people already and build relationships with them? Because that's a lot smaller tool than trying to get out there and try to get to all these people when you can just build relationships with the people who already cater to them.
I think that's so powerful. Having a conversation with your target buyers or customers that you've already acquired and brought into your community, right? Because that's what you're creating is a relationship, like what you said. You're creating discovery moments for yourself so you can learn more about what it is that drives them and why those moments mattered. And then through having those moments that matter and defining that target, that timing really creates consistency and confidence. And Patty, you and I have talked at length this year about this, but I mean, businesses need confidence and consistency. And if you're touching on the points that matter with the audience that aligns with you, and you're finding these discoverable moments with your existing clients, I mean, that really is going to drive better business and build out and bolster what it is that you want to do without impeding your story in business. And Lindsay, I know I'm stealing from you on that, but I really appreciate your perspective on that, Patty. And I think Amy had a comment on that. She raised her hand.
Oh, yeah, I just wanted to say, Patty, I think you're so right that the way you described like people looking to buy something now as like the missing piece that some people don't see, that's what we call in the data world like intent or in market. So that's really, like you said, if someone's looking for a buyer, they're looking for the bottom of the funnel. They're not just branding, they're looking for someone to make a purchase, to sign up for a subscription, to take an action. That's where we really look, beyond the demographics, which we may include also, but we also look for the intent or the in-market or brand signals based on what like they're interacting with online or just signing up for. And that really makes all the difference. And so I'm totally agreeing with you. I think that's an absolutely great thing. And the other thing you touched on was about having, companies or in a community, the relationships with maybe other companies. And I thought of, to me, it made me think of like two different companies having like sharing their customers if they have complementary but not the same product. So like a hat company and a glove company think, hey, you're selling gloves, this person that purchased gloves may want a hat and we don't sell hats. So, hey, and then, vice versa. And so that's, it applies to so many different kinds of things, but that's kind of what it made me think of there, which is, really a beautiful way to do business, and it's more of like a warm sell than a cold sell.
Thank you. Adam, can I give an example?
Absolutely.
So here, if anybody here are speakers or you go to events of any type, I think this is probably the best example in my world that I have seen. And it is like, there's a lot of different kinds of events. So there are events where as a speaker, they'll try to tell you, oh, we're going to have 300 people in the room, which usually means there'll be 100. But whatever that is, if one of the speakers is like a Reiki healer and you're in marketing, and then this other person over here is a mindset coach, and you literally have all those different people, how many of the people in that audience are really like your market, right? So that's one thing. And then the next thing is a lot of times when you have events, especially if they're paid events, you'll have friends, people that, are business associates, and they'll say, oh, Patty, I would love to support you, which is great. And really, I prefer people to support me by like promoting the event. But they'll say, oh, Patty, I could come to your event and support you, meaning they want to come to the event for free. I understand that they are doing it with wanting to support me. But one of the things that I always like to say is every one of those chairs at that event has a dollar sign. Like in reality, right? You pay all this money for the venue and the catering and all the stuff you do. So it has a dollar amount. So I think that people need to realize that when you're supporting, when you're building relationships, when you're thinking about who your target audience is, people want to go to things where everybody in that room, they may not all have the same business, but the theme is the same. And I think we're getting away from the let's try to cover 20 things in one place. And people are really wanting to get in more where they're going to have more intentional conversations, and that the people in the room, whether virtual or in the room personally, are actually their people too.
Yeah, they are people too. I mean, that's one thing that's hard to remember, because sometimes in business, we develop prisoner syndrome, right? And we've got some people coming in and out right now because of weather. So give them a little bit of grace, of course. But understanding that when you get into business and you have this understanding that the people around you are already so successful, you start to panic and you get prisoner syndrome. You think, why am I not successful? And you start targeting everybody and you make a mess. And then you create contention. And even when your friends and family want to come support you, and I love that you touched on that, it's great for the camaraderie and feeling good. But at the end of the day, understanding where your business lies and where the value lies is something that you've got to rip the Band-Aid off and get real with too, right? Because those dollar signs will matter. And so thank you for touching on that, because that was our next question. Why wouldn't you want to target everybody? And I really think that that's important, because it's not just protecting your business and your identity, but it's protecting yourself from overstepping boundaries with people and creating abrasion or a lackluster experience. We know that that doesn't go very far in business. So I think that there's a lot of value in that, Patty. So thank you on that. Lindsay, what would you do if you had to say no to certain people? I mean, talk to us about why you wouldn't target everybody and how that aligns with the story.
I like to talk about this through this analogy that I call the mountaintop journey. And so oftentimes I have a picture to go along with it. So you're just going to have to do the picture work in your own brain. But if you picture yourself at the bottom of the mountain, and you're looking at the mountain, and at the top, that's your target audience. Those are the people that you're wanting to reach. And so we know, whether you hike or you read stories about hiking, we know that, to get to that mountain, it's not easy. There's a certain path you have to take. There's going to be all sorts of obstacles in our way. And so before we go along on that journey, we have to think about, one, what are we going to need to take in our own pack to survive the journey? And from a business perspective, for me, that really is about what I call your inside story, really understanding your own strengths, your own stories, where you came from, your values. All of those pieces are the things that are going to sustain you on that journey. But then once you get to the top, as you're traveling, your audience is seeing you come. Like, they're watching, they see, they're skeptical, they're wondering, why are you joining them? And so you get up there and they're going to have needs. And so you have to think about, what is in my pack that is going to meet the needs of these people at the top of the mountain? And not only that, what do I need to give these people to convince them to come down off the mountain with me? Because that is our goal with our target audience. And so you cannot target everybody just using that metaphor alone, because there's only so many people that you can strategically bring down off of that mountain with you. There's only so much that you can put into your pack. And if you try to bring everybody down off that mountain, well, then we have a catastrophic mountain journey event where not everybody makes it off. And so for me, it's just from the standpoint alone of, there's only our hearts and our hands are only so big. We can only reach so much. And so when we start to cut ourselves up and try to spread ourselves all over the place, it really dilutes the gift that we have to bring to the table. And we show up looking really generic without a convincing story to bring those people down off of our mountain.
I think that what you just said is so powerful. I mean, diluting the experience is a very dangerous thing, again, in business, because there's no longevity in business if you do that, right? And understanding that if your job is to challenge yourself through experience and then convince others that you're a solution, not necessarily just there for a transaction. That's a creative journey that you've got to follow in alignment with yourself and with the people that are going to follow you down through these paths. And not everybody wants to come with you, and that's okay. And that's a hard thing to come to Jesus on, but that's, you've got to be open to that. And you've got to really shed some light on that. And pardon my pun, but I'm going to throw this conversation over to Amy because she's in the dark. Amy, how do you shed light on, not targeting everybody in data?
Yeah, I apologize for my ghost-like appearance, but my power, it just went back on. Thank you. Okay. I just had a power outage and I don't have a storm, so I'm not sure what happened, but yeah, so do you want to pay for, think about direct mail, which is, old fashioned, but it's still a very big marketing tool. Do you want to pay for postage? You know how postage goes up all the time. Printing is extremely expensive. To send a piece of mail to everybody and think, you might get something back, it's counterintuitive to what we're looking for in business. We're looking to find our tribe, our community, as Lindsay had said, which is absolutely, correct. These are the people we're looking to serve that we believe we can serve well. So you really want to identify those people, and not just, cost is a huge thing, but you also don't want to piss people off by sending them offers that have nothing to do with them. They're like, why do I get this offer for fly fishing when I do crochet and I get it every week? And why are they, hounding me with this? I do crochet. I started a few weeks ago. I want to learn more about crochet. I don't want to fly fish. So it's really, getting the right offer to the right people, because it'll make sense to them. And it could be something, it's a two-way street. You want to send your crochet offer to someone who's going to enjoy crochet and say, oh, great, that's another stitch I could learn, or, tool I can use, or whatnot. You don't want to send it to the fly fisherman that's going to be like, I don't want this, so it's really, it doesn't make much sense to just target everybody, unless, the only time I've seen people really just do much more broad targeting, and like one example is like, billboards, which are, just we see on the highway or in cities, and they're just, advertising Coca-Cola or something like that. All right, that makes sense. It's Coca-Cola. Everybody could drink that, and they just want to make a splash and get their newest flavor out there. But the really interesting thing is that just in the last few years, even billboards have become a digital marketing tool, and it's called DOOH, digital out of home. And it could be in a grocery store where you see some ad, down the aisle or by the register for some product. It could be the big billboards you see on 42nd Street or on the highway. But now they're done programmatically, just like regular digital advertising, and they're actually targeting by the type of people that are there at the time of day that they're most likely there. So they don't put up, a female running shoe offer, not at a time where the most female runners are there. It's gotten kind of crazy. But so even in digital out of home, people are working on using algorithms to learn anonymously, when their audience is going to be at a certain place and time. And so it's even, other forms and other channels of marketing are able to realize this. Connected TV is also one of the more recent ones that are doing it. And who wants to pay for one? The audience isn't there, and people are likely not going to respond. Do you want to pay to have a billboard up 24/7, or do you want to pay, when you identify that your potential customers, or most likely potential customers, are there from 3 to 7 every evening? All right, do that. So I think it's even more and more important with the more data and technology that's there.
And I think that's valuable. I think understanding the cost of doing business is something that we all have to learn, and it's a delicate balance. But it's easy to really align and say, I'm not Coca-Cola. I'm not this major brand that needs to be familiar to everybody. And maybe I will be later in life. Maybe I need to have some form of marketing that creates and breeds familiarity and understanding, so that they can acknowledge me when the moments matter, like what you said. But I appreciate you for shedding light on that. And I'm glad your power is back on. And thank you for enlightening us on that, Amy. Patty's got her hand up.
I really love what Amy says, because I really think that people don't really realize how important data, story, behaviors affect your marketing, right? So for me, really, one of the reasons why you wouldn't want to target everyone is not only is it a waste of your time and money, but it's also a waste of your energy. And I think that is really important as well. So I think that when you really get clear on who your community is, who your people are, that everything you're doing, when you're speaking through your heart, when you're telling your story, right, when you're tailoring your products, your messaging, and even your advertising, right, it resonates with your audience and you're going to have greater success. One of the things using data and behaviors that's really been important to me and very successful is that I vet my email list. Like a lot of times people don't really worry about it, right? But I really do. And it is very, very successful for me in the sense that twice a year, this is kind of one of the ways that I think you can monetize your business too, is if you vet your list. So for me, twice a year, I literally tell my audience, it's like, I want to honor you by only sending you relevant content that you actually want to have. And then I ask them. And what I do is I have made it so that I ask them, check below, what are the things that you would love to hear from me? And when they click on them, they pretty much segment themselves into a list that they want to get automatically, because each one of those things just puts them in the list that they want, so that way that's all that they will get. And my CRM knows just to send them information based on that. So it just segments them for them and they get to choose. And I feel this way, they're hearing the message that they want to get. And I have a very, very low unsubscribe rate, I think, because of that. So I think it is really important.
Yeah, I love the creative feedback that you've just brought up, because we talk about not wanting to target everybody, but that doesn't necessarily mean what it is, which is to cut certain people out. It means that certain products you have might not be for everybody, right? You might be a business that you have audiences built into it. You've got different, available products that really work for these people. And if it's something that really aligns with them in one category and the other services or products you have just don't, being able to, take that and silo it and make sure that they're getting what they need support wise and creative wise creates that consistency again. So I really appreciate you for touching on that, because I think that's another valuable concept in business, is understanding that longevity in business does come from avoiding that distraction. And Lindsay, you put this in the chat. I'm going to read it out. Lack of target is distraction, right? And distraction on the mountaintop, that's devastation. And nobody wants devastation in business. There's cost to doing business. There's cost to finding these people, and there's cost to finding the transaction. And what we want to create is longevity and transformation, right? And I think all of these things align with defining the market, defining your buyer, creating that story, and really targeting when and why those moments matter, and understanding that it's not always going to line up, right? Sometimes it's okay to let go of certain products or people or audiences for now, right? Because your business.
And I think, and actually to add to that, Adam, I really think that is not just an email. I think it really plays in social. I think because, we all have and should know what our customer journey is. Like, who is our customer and what is their journey, right? So I think that on social, do you need to talk to your people on every level, every step along that journey? Yes, but not all at the same time, right? Not every post you should try to keep, every single person in every step of the journey. So it really does help you to know what your messaging is, what stories to tell, they're going to relate to, and that to know that every single thing that you're doing, whether it's on social or your email, that you are talking to the right person at the right time when they're in the right part of their journey. And I think that's when you're the most successful. But Jonathan will probably actually touch on that too.
I was gonna jump in because I loved everything that you said, and that's like a scripture that I live by. Is if you don't want to saturate people, you don't want to give them too much of anything, whether it's too much of what they want or too much of what they don't want. It is you have to be tactical and strategic about where you are sharing information and how frequently you're doing it. And to that point, if you're sharing every single day, like this is the exact step that you take, if someone goes about it and has a different journey or it goes through different hoops to get there, you're kind of on your back heel now, and you've got to pivot a little bit, because you said this is how things are done. And we know that there are many ways to accomplish goals, and that there are many strategies that are effective. But it's amazing. I'm at this conference right now, and one of the panels that I'm working on is social for animal rescue. And it's amazing thinking about how many people think that the more you post, the more you share all of your information, you show everyone all of your cards, the better it's going to be. And that's not how it is. It's about being thoughtful about what messaging you're putting out there. What value is this providing? Am I actually teaching them something about this journey, or am I just putting something up for the hell of putting something up? And I think, Patty, you spoke so perfectly to that. And I just had to put a little exclamation point after it. It was really, really good.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Yeah, thanks, Jonathan. Patrick, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, and I came in late, so I'm not sure if that's the format that we're supposed to interject or not. Is that okay?
This is
Absolutely.
a conversation, my friend.
I just want to make sure. So, I was going to hold till the end, but what Jonathan was saying, because when we talk about target marketing, a lot of times people look at it as an action that a business person takes towards a market, but it's a two-way street. The target has to accept what you're aiming at and shooting at. They have to accept what you shoot to them. So it's a two-way thing. And I've lived this with Amy. So every one of the three panelists are describing something that I've actually experienced with her. And so if you change the word data to fact or information, you're making fact-based decisions, and you start with an informed decision. I want to appeal to people who are 50 who are retiring, AARP. So what happens is, when I get to Amy and say, I want to do that, she says, okay, the smartest way to do this is to narrow your focus, because the Chicago Bears have proven when you have 3 quarterbacks, you have no quarterbacks, right? So when you try to be everything to everybody, you're nothing to anybody. And so that comes into play what Lindsay was talking about with, you need to then tell the story that I think this is my target. Let's tell the story about that. And does my offer get accepted by that? So I can aim at the target all day long, but if they're not going to accept it, I'm going to miss. And then the idea of what Patty was talking about with monetizing this, I love the mass marketing becoming micro marketing, which is really who is actually buying within that segment, because you have to stay in business, and it isn't about just being a friend to everybody. So I like what you're all talking about, because the whole idea of two-way street of marketing and mass marketing, well, you have to micro market, but it has to be relevant. And all of this is so important to everybody's business, that I think the three of you could form your own corporation on how to better market what we all three do together. So I'm just living testimonial that what Amy says works and does work and has worked for years. And she's one of the best at it in the industry, at helping you, not just, hey, Amy, I want 50-year-old men, but who are going to retire, AARP. But she'll say, well, what do you want that for? Why do you want that? What makes them buy? What else do they buy? Where else do they go? And she brings you into this focus, and then helps you tell the story backwards, reverse engineer your own story to make sure you're not just shooting at a bunch of targets you think you see, that they're just a mirage. So kudos to all.
And that makes sense. And that is
Yeah.
where they need Lindsay, because Lindsay's going to really help them to go right in after Amy does that and really help them with that story that they want to tell. So
Patty, you're so right, because we tell our story like it's our sales pitch, but if it falls on deaf ears, it doesn't matter. So exactly. The whole reverse engineer approach that Lindsay takes, which I loved, and it was very subtle, but it's powerful, is to tell the story back to the person who's aiming. Be the person on top of the mountain, watching them climb the mountain, and understand, when you get here, I have needs. I'm gonna have questions, but I have needs. And so I love it all.
I also think there's something so human to that approach, right? Like, it's practical, but it's also like, I have to learn about these people. they're not just targets. They're more than that. And I have to know, what else do you like? What is interesting to you? And as someone who, we all get marketed to on, specifically on social media, I'm thinking, but even if I get an advertisement for something that I am not interested in purchasing, I can recognize when something is sent to me because it is relevant to me versus when I got something because I'm 32 years old and live in New York City. And I am infinitely more likely to indulge that first advertisement simply because it might be something I didn't know that I needed, but I can tell that whatever the computer was or the person who made this targeting took the time to figure out I'm not just my age and my location, but there are so many other facets to me where this, Amy, you said it earlier, I might be sick of seeing, new stitches for crochet, but the bottom line is that's what I'm into right now. And it makes sense that I'm getting that kind of information. I'm getting those kinds of posts. And I think it just adds a really special human element to all of this to make it a little less about this is a target as much as these are humans who I am actively trying to make a connection with and solve a problem of theirs or address an issue of theirs or help them in some way.
Yeah, I like to think of it as the difference between, like what you're saying, Jonathan, is so true. It's the difference between being intrusive and truly seen. Like, we can intrude on our target audience's lives, or we can truly see them. And when somebody sees them, when I'm seen, those ads that show up, it's like a blessing on my feed. Like, oh my gosh, this is exactly what I'm looking for. Versus the other things like, what in the heck? You don't even know me, algorithm. I'm not the person you think I am, type of thing. And so, intrusion versus truly seen, I think are two interesting concepts to think through.
I'm glad that you mentioned that, because that brings us full circle, right, to what we're talking about. Imagine co-creating something in a business with your clients, your audience, and you miss the mark, or you give them too much. I like to just look at it like a blind date. You show up at a blind date, and in the first 10 minutes, it's somebody that's totally not your type, totally outside of your category, and they throw up their entire lives on you. You throw up your entire lives on them, and then you have to make a decision. Are we all in or all out? Like, that would be terrible. But a lot of times in business, that's really what we're doing. And instead, we should be garnering relationships, asking questions that matter, determining if we see them for who they are and they see us for who we are. Because at the end of the day, when we leave that scenario, yes, there was a connection made, but the most frequent question that people get asked is, how was it? What were they like? And those are the experiences we're going to share in business. How was it? What was it like? What made them stand out? And yes, profits have to happen. People need to be involved. Technology is evolving, and we're kind of straddling the last part of our conversation here. But how do you really balance that approach to driving profit, making sure that you can have a success in business, and straddling the future of technology and algorithms and AI and everything else that's kind of muddying the waters right now? And I'd love to kind of throw that over to you, Lindsay. But Susan's got her hand up real quick. Do you mind if we open it up for comment real quick?
Yeah, fine.
Yeah, so what comes to me is, after a while, you get a lot of feedback from your customers, right? So just recently, I went through a whole reevaluation, and I started writing down all the things from the notes that I take with my clients. And I realized I have like pages of words that describe what it is that they come to me for. And I thought, maybe I should just start using these words to convey messages. So anyway, I think that history really helps us get the words out that matter to the people that really want to work with us. Or that not really necessarily want to work with us, but I guess I'm not sure that I'm saying that correctly. Once someone comes to get to know you, and they realize you use the words that resonate with them, I mean, that's the conversation starter to me. And that's what seems to be what draws people to want to work with me and inquire with me to say, hey, maybe this is what I need. So I don't know. I just feel like that history that we have with people is what really helps me move forward with messages that may resonate with people. And I tend to get people that do work with me because those posts really resonate with their heart, and they're like, oh my God, I need you. So what do you guys have to say about that, right? Like this history that you have as a business owner is really what I think we should be looking at.
And it's even more than what you were saying about like what it's always important to know what your clients are saying, right? I mean, that is and I'm sure Lindsay's going to jump in a second, talk about how you should use your words and how it's gold and all this stuff. That absolutely is. But from a business growth point of view, there's other places too. Like that obviously is the most important place. What are our clients saying? But some other places that you can look for those is if you're on LinkedIn and you have people have left you recommendations, like read them and see what's the pattern of the words that keep coming up over and over and over. If you have a podcast, and they've left you reviews, what are the words that come up over and over and over?
Mhm.
I think those are some really good places where people can kind of pick that. But what your clients say for sure, that is really gold. And I'm going to turn that over to Lindsay because I'm sure she's frothing at the bit here to get in there because that's really your thing. So go ahead, Lindsay.
Yeah, it's really about pushing back on our own assumptions and biases. And so as business owners, we're always coming in thinking, well, we understand our audience, or I know that my audience needs this, or I've been in business for 10 years. And so I know my people. And it can be really uncomfortable to have those conversations because it demands us to be vulnerable. Like I just had a client who did not want to send out a survey to her audience. And so I'm like, fine, I'm not going to push it. If you're adamant that you're not going to do it, don't do it. Her business coach then convinced her to do it. She didn't think anybody would respond. She got all these responses that were like life-changing to her. Like she had no idea people loved her the way that they loved her. And so her assumption and her own assumptions almost blocked her from getting this really critical data that we needed, really critical qualitative data. Because we can't over rely on the quantitative data. The numbers are great, but they only tell us a piece of the story. We need the qualitative data as well to bring a cohesive piece to the story that we're showing up with, because it's not just our story, it's our audience's story. I always say our stories should answer, like our audience is wondering, who am I going to be when I decide to trust you? Who am I going to become when I decide to join you? And if we're not answering that question, then our story is short. And we can't answer that question unless we truly know who our audience is. We can't tell a one-sided story.
I think there's so much validation in that, because that brings it full circle to not just the cycle of business, but it aligns with people and profit, right? If the people you're dealing with, and they truly are your target buyer, target market, target audience, and their experience is something that they would like to celebrate with you, getting that feedback validates not only you, but the fact that you're doing the right thing by charging what you're charging. And if it's coming out of the woodwork that you should be doing with this with more people, well, maybe it's time to challenge yourself to raise your prices or expand your audience or try new things, and you get this consistency of creativity and business success is that drives longevity. And I think that there's so much validation in that, Lindsay. And I love that you touched on that. And Susan, thank you for bringing this up, because this really drives the balancing act of profit and people. We've got the story that we're telling ourselves, right? We've got the story that we want our clients to hear and share. And it's a delicate balance between that and the bills that are coming in the mail, right? That can be a difficult shift. And I think that there's a lot of power that can be taken in overcoming those obstacles, removing those, and stop seeing them as obstacles. Like what Patrick said, stop seeing those as line items and start seeing them as fact, and align with that story and celebrate that success. And people like, Amy and Patty and Lindsay, you guys on this call, your capabilities together are so powerful. So thank you for that, Lindsay. I'm going to open it up to Amy real quick for fact-based decision-making on how you balance people and profit and the future of technology and what you see on that.
I think it's very similar to what we've been talking about. I think what Susan brought up was extremely important in terms of hearing what your customers have to say about you. Like there's so much, like Lindsay said, I wanted to say it too, is gold right there in listening to them, looking at their words, like Patty said, whether it be social media or the surveys that that Lindsay was talking about. That's amazing that your client did that. That's so, I just was like, you know, clapping, like she did that and she learned so much. And that's really how she can learn more about her current customers that are happy with her services, as well as use that to help customer, you know, prospects that are maybe thinking about her services and say, here, you know, this is what my current customers think of me and how, you know, how they use me or how they evaluate me. And that could just help in, you know, that, you know, business building right there. So I think, so we were talking about fun versus facts. I forgot the question, but I did like what everything we've been talking about. I totally agree with.
No, I mean, you're hitting the nail on the head. The experience in creating profit with the people you have around you. And
Yes. Yeah. And so I know we've talked about this, Adam, you brought it up several times that, you know, I always like to say to people, you know, I'm not a nonprofit. So, so they want something for free or whatever, you know, that's not me. But I think if you lead people, if you, like we've talked about today, like listen to them, what is their particular need, even though they fit, you know, a target demographic or a target audience, you know, especially when you're doing consultative type selling like we do with small businesses. So we're not selling an AARP membership, which is like, all right, here's what it is. And that's what it is. Like we're trying to figure out how can we help this specific business or specific client meet their marketing needs. And I think really listening to that and putting something together that is unique. I know we do a lot of custom solutions. I know Patrick had alluded to that. Thank you. That's what we kind of do, is try to listen and figure out what would work for you. Like, I don't want a sale. I want a client that I can help for a long time. I want to find a program that will work for you. So like, we're pretty well aligned if a client is on that same thinking. And I'll even offer, you know, take a small amount of our data and try it for free against your other, you know, other data you're testing, and tell me if it's better or worse. If not, we can make adjustments. And that's, you know, we don't just, you know, even when we do sell data, we're always, you know, in touch with clients, like, how's it working, you know, a month later, do you need adjustments? Well, we'll optimize the data, and that's kind of how the success comes. So it's not like a one and done. It's like we test and we learn. And until someone tries the data, they don't really know the value of it. Now, there's some use cases where it's just like, this is the price of the data, and, you know, take it, where there's others that are much more unique, that we're putting together custom solutions where we can say, like, tell us how it worked, and, you know, adjust, you know, how much of it do you need? How long will you use it? And we put together things that will work. But we love clients who will do a test and learn, who will give us feedback. Not all of them will. And you know, I don't know why, but they just want to take it and run. But when they come back to us and say, we'll talk to you about this is how it performed. This is how many sales I got, how many conversions, how many, you know, interested or leads or whatever, we then, you know, make tweaks to the data and pull in different segments that will help respond better, give them a higher dollar per donor, or whatever it is, you know, that they're looking for. And that's where the real success happens. So it really is in the learning and the feedback and the coming back at it. It's not a one and done in marketing.
And I think the consistency and the repeat customers are what we're all about. And you're only going to drive that if you understand the outcome, right? The adage goes, you give a friend $100 and they never pay you back, you never see them again, it was probably worth the $100. You can only do that so many times in business, right? You need to know whether or not there's a hiccup in your business and your style and the people that you're working with in the target. So I appreciate you for understanding and bringing your perspective and your voice to what you create, and that excellence in fact and data, and discovering the audience that you have. Patty, I'm going to throw it over to you to kind of round us out on balancing people and profit.
Okay, thanks. I think really for me, as I was listening to Amy, and, you know, obviously I know Lindsay better, so I really think that was important. But for me, it really comes back to something I say all the time, which is, if you lead with contribution, compensation will follow every single time, right? I mean, that's really like the name of the game. And so for me, you know, it is a balancing act, but for me, it's that I am committed, right? I'm committed to be responsible, right? I have a responsibility to them, and I'm committed to that. And so because of that, there's things that we do and we are committed to them. So I think just to kind of touch a little bit on what we're saying, technology is here now. It's not going anywhere. It just keeps going. With AI right now, we have a lot more, but I feel like not only do they want to hear our voice and our heart, but I think it's also, story is so big, but within those things, it's also important that they want to know what your point of view is. That is what's going to separate you from other people. But again, if you serve, don't sell, and you lead with contribution, at the end of the day, compensation will follow that. You'll be true to your heart and you'll be using your voice, and they will respond to that.
Thank you for that. I think there's so much power in understanding that leading with contribution can create opportunities and discovery, especially if you're in the right environments with the right people that are listening, right? And they're experiencing that, because everything does come full circle. And if you're a business owner, your job is to retain those clients and create this powerful environment of experience that others can share. The most powerful thing you can get is a referral. And usually your clients are the first to refer themselves back to you. They're going to be the repeat buyers. And I really I appreciate the three of you for bringing your voices on today. I know we're at the end of our hour. I know that we are fighting through the storms of the real world out there, but we're fighting the storms of business all the time too, right? We've got these wildly important goals. There's always windstorms. There's always tumultuous obstacles. There's always something trying to distract us. And so having the capacity to understand your target market through data, to align with the story that builds on your purpose and passion and really creates an environment of experience and helps monetize things. I mean, that's the most powerful story in business we can have. And so I am just so appreciative of all of you, for Amy, for Lindsay, for Patty, for being here and sharing your voices. And of course, for our community members for being part of the conversation, because that really does matter to us.
Thanks for having us.
Thank
Great.
you all so much.
Thank
I
you.
just put in the comments, I can't wait. This was an amazing hour, and we're back to doing main page LinkedIn stuff again, and I cannot wait to get this up on the main page. You are all marvels, and this is such a valuable hour for so many people, and thank you so much for taking your time to be with us today.
Yeah, thank you so much. Experts in experience, right? So if you guys want to, everybody that's listening to this later, of course, connect with Amy at LB Digital, Lindsay with Storyhouse 15, and Patty Farmer over there at Marketing, Media, and Money. And of course, you guys can always find us in the community. Thank you so much.